Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. It's me, Haseeba Saban, your DEI communications consultant focusing on religious identity in the workplace. Thank you so much and welcome to our live stream. With me in the studio this afternoon, I have the lovely Sofia, who is a coach, and she'll talk a little bit more about herself and do a quick introduction over the next few minutes before we kick into my live stream.
Assalamu alaikum, Haseeba. Thank you again for inviting me to talk about this beautiful subject of the Golden Era of Andalusia, the golden age of Islamic history.
Absolutely. And can you just tell our audiences what you do, Sophia, as in sort of being an Islamic coach, what does that entail? Just kind of 2 minutes.
Yes, so I mainly coach Muslim women, and what I do is I offer a faith-based coaching and mentoring to my clients, so that it's more of a holistic approach to coaching, so that every aspects of our lives, personalities, and identities are taken into account and to reach the best of results with the will of Allah. So yeah, I'm very much passionate about our Islamic history because it's also part of our identity we can be proud of. And yeah, with everything that's going on, I hope I guess we all need someone who's a few steps ahead of us, be it in like coaching, for like life coaching, business coaching, whatever it may be, to help us on our journey of life. So thanks again for having me, and I look forward to hearing from you during this beautiful trip that you had in Granada.
Yeah, and for my audiences, if you're wondering why my choice was Sophia to do this live stream with, it's because of her coaching and how she's helping Muslim women, reaching this level of excellence. And when we talk of level of excellence, I couldn't help but experience and see that and witness that firsthand during my trip to Granada. A region that is rich in history, a history that shows how peaceful coexistence was possible, intercultural and multi-faith, sort of, there was a sync. And I think today, with everything that's going on, it's just such a powerful lesson, that we can take in today's fractured world. So once again, thank you so much, Sophia. Jazakallah khair for joining this live stream. I'm going to
You're
start with
welcome. My
just
pleasure.
I'm going to start with just sort of playing the video with just some highlights of my experience so that the audience can actually see, what it was like for me. And, that's just me with an aerial view. And this is the gardens at the palaces. And when you come in, you're just wowed with not just the architecture and design and nature, but the sound of the water. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I'm just going to stop here. Um, you know, just a little bit for any of the viewers who don't know the history. So the period of Arab Muslim rule over the Iberian Peninsula was the only time in European history when Muslim Jews and Christians lived relatively peacefully together. And that resulted in a common culture and a very, very harmonious society. So like I mentioned earlier, this period and place has powerful lessons for us today, especially when we see what's happening and the narrative is very negative, towards Muslims and towards sort of our ethos. And when we look at Andalusia's history, you see this remarkable, harmonious cohabitation. And we should ask ourselves, why can't we replicate that today? Because we need to we need to essentially foster a sense of hopefulness amongst all of us. We need to look at the current challenge, this pervasive belief that one's own perspective is the absolute truth, which often leads to conflict. And this conviction today is so strong that people are even willing to commit violence for it. And that's what we're witnessing today. you know each time we look at the news, we are so saddened with what we're seeing at the moment. And as early on as 711, so that shows you how far back Muslim forces entered the Iberian Peninsula from North Africa. And they occupied most of Portugal, Spain, and parts of southern France, which became known as Al-Andalus. And this happened as it joined the expanding Umayyad Empire. And during the Islamic Golden Age, which took place between the 8th and the 14th century, Al-Andalus became a hub for social and cultural exchange, with art, science, architecture, agriculture, and medicine and maths just flourished. And many of these achievements, the religious tolerance, the collaboration between Muslim Jews and Christians, is why this period of history is sometimes referred to as La Convivencia, which means coexistence. And this era also brought about some of the most significant scholars, poets, musicians, philosophers, historians, and thinkers of the medieval age. And some of them are Ibn Arabi, Ibn Rushd, and they also had Latin names. So Ibn Rushd was known as Avarus, and then there was Al-Zarqali, which was known as Azeichel in Latin, and Al-Zahrawi, who was known as Abul Qasis in Latin, and Ibn Firna. So these are just a few. And if we look at these Andalusian philosophers, these thinkers who were very much on a spiritual level, and we also link that to Sufism, who, like Ibn Arabi, they made love the basis of human relationships. And so I'm going to continue playing the video because that's something that I've seen happen or experienced when I was actually there, experiencing firsthand. Oh, I think I've cut my my live stream. SubhanAllah.
I can still see you and hear
Oh,
you,
you
Haseeba.
can hear me. So I didn't cut my live stream. Okay, everything froze on my screen. So I'm sorry to my audience. I'll play it again. And I'll try and find my actual tab for my live stream. So there we go. I'm back. Wonderful. Technical hiccups. So as I mentioned before, you see the design, you see the sort of symbolism, the calligraphy, and you experience sort of a sense of calmness because the sound of water is trickling. The design itself is absolutely stunning. The geometry, the work that was done, quite innovative for that time and influenced the West as well. And if you look at this design specifically, these are like the stalactites that you see, these icicles. And to create that in 3D form is quite unique and quite, I can't find the words, quite innovative.
Did
And
you put the video on the live stream again? Because I can't seem to see it right now.
Okay. So we'll try and play that again.
As you were describing it, it looks so nice. So I was wondering, did you put the image back?
I did. It's actually still playing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to stop it and probably try to share my live again. So let's just do that. Let's present and share screen. And I think we can play it from here. Okay, we should be able to see it. Yep, I see it as well now. So
yeah,
we'll just get that out there. So in terms of like I mentioned, the design which was quite innovative, and the calligraphy in the walls. And I'll just pause here a little bit. So the calligraphy are, various verses from the Quran. So we have Ayatul Kurs and we have Surah Mulk, and these are quite, powerful verses or chapters that most Muslims recite regularly, if not on a daily basis. And so when you think of these sort of rulers, surrounding themselves with their faith, they hold themselves accountable each and every second that they're living in the space. And I found that quite intriguing as well. And, every single pillar and column has this beautiful sort of calligraphy. And then there's this one term that I mentioned to you, Sofia, when we were chatting earlier, that's all over the walls. And all over the sort of internal parts of the palace walls, which is actually relating to Allah, to God, for our non-Muslim audiences. And the key phrase here is, do you want to say it again in Arabic, Sophia? And I'll just find my...
Was it لا غالب إلا الله?
Yes, there is no victor but Allah. And
Yeah.
this recurring inscription is found throughout the Alhambra Palace, in the Nasrid palaces. And if you think about it, somebody who is holding themselves accountable to God, that there is no victory without, having God in your path, meaning first and foremost is your relationship with him. And for those of you who are not Muslim, we have very strict criteria on your relationship with God and the things you need to do. So a just, honest ruler with a high level integrity is exactly what you'll find if his ethos is so spiritual, if it's so focused on the oneness of God, and that everything he does is in the sight of God, and there is no victory if he doesn't have that relationship. So that was something that stood out for me as well. And again, like I mentioned earlier, how they lived together, how they collaborated with other faiths is something that just, something we can learn from. And I don't know what happened over time and how this got lost. And obviously the dynasty ended, being overthrown by the Christians, and Muslims were forced to convert at that time to Christianity, which is quite sad, because at the time that the Muslims ruled, nobody was forced into practicing Islam. They were allowed to keep their own faith. So again, we're witnessing the beautiful architecture, the design. And something else I found was, so here's the design my guide was showing me, that there's 7 pieces that fit together. Each design comprises of 7 pieces or 7 geometric pieces. And in Islam, 7 is quite symbolic for us, because it's also relevant to the 7 layers, the 7 heavens, so to speak. And the view as well from here. So the rulers were seeing the entire city. And if you look at the garden and the roses and the foliage and the water and the sustainability, so there's lots of sort of oranges. Spain is well known. These were all brought over by the Moors, during this time. And even the water system, initially they were carrying water up from below, because the palace is quite high up and the city, the town, is below. And they created a water system that would provide water to the entire city. And that's quite phenomenal. I was told that even till today, they can't just, if they have an issue, they really need a specialist to come out and help them fix any blockages in the plumbing system. So innovative for that time and that period. And then the sense that I had was this, so the water trickling, all the fountains, the smell of the roses, the citrus smell, the infusion. You have a sense of calm, and yet you're high up and you're doing a lot of walking. You should be tired, but the mindfulness you experience, and then the calligraphy. And then what was interesting as well, Sophia, is prayer times. The design Oh, this threw me. So innovative. Here you see the mathematicians of our time, really showcase their talents. When the sun casts a certain shadow, you'll know exactly what prayer time it is, because our prayers are based on the lunar calendar and at certain times of the day. And that was beautiful. You didn't need a watch. You knew exactly what prayer time it was. And
Wow.
can you
And
only imagine?
it's funny that you mentioned that because at that time this is how everybody would know is it time for prayer. Now we rely so much on our watches, on our devices, that we can't even figure out the time of prayer looking at the sun. And this is what people were used to doing for centuries before we had all of these technologies, and also being guided at night by the stars. This is something we like we are completely lost now, and it's something it's interesting to be reminded of that, because at the end of the day we always have the sun, we always have the stars to guide us.
Absolutely. And when you're there, you get a sense for how technology we've advanced, but how it's also pulled us away from nature and the outdoors, right? We're so insular. And exactly what you're saying, I remember at the time of the tsunamis when that happened, they said that the birds and animals were already moving to higher ground before the tsunami hit. People, when they saw the waves go back, were walking towards, going, oh, we can pick up shells. Wow, look, this is amazing. Not realizing the danger, right? Because we're so
Yeah.
out of tune, out of sync with nature.
Exactly. This is what I was thinking when you were describing the water, the
Mhm.
like this, like the people who designed this at the time, they did it in tune with nature,
Yes. Yes.
so that you can feel this harmony.
Yeah.
It's not something which is foreign to
Yes.
nature.
Yes.
What they built was completely, they try to do it as seamlessly as possible to be
Mhm. Mhm.
integrated into nature.
Yes. And what was so beautiful is the sustainability story. So a lot of people don't know this, but Islam is, one of our key sort of attributes of what we should all be doing as Muslims is being sustainable.
Yeah.
And what you see at Alhambra is how they've used water and vegetation, not just in the aesthetics, but also in terms of how it supports the vegetation. So all those fountains and all of the water, nothing is being wasted. It's actually sustaining all those beautiful trees and flowers, and you know it's absolutely wonderful. It's not wasting.
Mhm.
And that was something that I absolutely enjoyed as well, experiencing that and seeing that in action. It's not just beauty as in it's eye candy, but like you were saying, Sophia, there's a lot more behind it.
Yeah.
The thinking, the benefits of their design goes beyond just an individual. And then there's the spiritual level, which ties in with our faith. Because when I was there, I can't tell you how calm and serene and zen I felt. If I had done those amount of steps in a city here, I'd be stressed, I'd be flustered, I'd be, there's a different feeling. But there, even though physically I was challenged because of the vastness of the palace, and I had to walk quite a bit, I didn't feel it, because my mind, my soul, everything was just peace and calm. And so my guide, I have to mention her. Her name is Wafa. I'm going to put her contact details and her Instagram handle in the comments for our viewers. She was absolutely fantastic. She's a freelance tour guide. She's also a teacher at the local mosque, which is fantastic. So, her Arabic language skills, her explanation from the religious perspective is fantastic, because she combines the two, the history with her Islamic knowledge. She was absolutely brilliant. And one of the things that I found was, together we prayed our Asr prayer, because we started the tour probably an hour before the afternoon prayer. And I said to her, is there a place to pray? And she says, we can pray in the gardens. And she found this secluded spot for me. And I can't tell you, I was panicking because she gave me her travel prayer mat, which is quite thin and there's no padding. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, on hard grounds, my knees are going to hurt. But the ground was just so soft. It was like I was praying on a carpet. And that also moved me. So I prayed. We took turns because initially we were going to pray together, but then we took turns. She looked after my handbag at the local little cafe in the palace, and I prayed and then went back, looked after the handbag, and she did. And it was just an amazing experience because you have the water trickling, you can smell the roses, and you're praying. And I was told that the idea was, obviously we can't replicate heaven, but the goal was to give you a sense of what it's like to be in heaven. And I promise you, I'm sure heaven is a million times more beautiful, but this was a wonderful experience. And I hadn't experienced this, Sophia. I've not been on pilgrimage. I've been to the UAE, so I've been to some big mosques there, the Sheikh Zayed Mosque. I've been to Egypt, but this experience was totally different.
I still want to go there now.
You have to. And this was just the first journey, right? Andalusia is big. So I've now done Alhambra. I'm going to go back with hubby, probably the end of this month or end of June. And we're going to do Cordoba as well, because there's a lot more history there as well. And so besides Alhambra, what I also did was Al Basin, which is the old quarters, the old Moor quarters. It's absolutely beautiful. And the mosque is there as well. And then I also did it's like a museum. I can't get to the name now, but it's in the city, and there's a little bit of Alhambra architecture, but it was closed for me to go in and actually see. But I could just see sort of little bits of the wall, which is very similar to the Alhambra design. And this is part of, it's right next to the church. So you see, when the Christians sort of overthrew the Muslims, a lot was removed, but there's still little nuggets, little gems that are surfacing that wasn't changed. And there you see the beauty, and the architecture. And what was interesting, and this is no disrespect to anyone of another faith, but when you go through the palace and you go from the Nasrid dynasty and these beautiful palaces to when they were overthrown and the changes were happened, the ceilings become low, the walls become bland, and everybody goes, it's an anticlimax. So we go from this beauty, which was a lot earlier, very innovative, to then the next sort of, group of people who came and ruled and changed things. But the beauty goes, the calmness goes, and the architecture changes. And it's exactly what we were just talking about, what we do in modern times, right? We often want to make things simpler and bland, and we take away the natural beauty and aesthetics. So, with the production of plastic and MDF, instead of using wood, and so if you look at the craftsmanship you have in my background picture as well of Alhambra, the work and the intricate details, we don't do that anymore because everything is mass produced, right? We want to get out the furniture, we want to pack it, we want convenience.
Yeah.
And so
it takes time to do that. Who has the time now?
Exactly. But then you see what we lose, right? You see
Yeah.
the harmony goes. And the tour guide, Wafa, she lives in Al Bazin in the old district. And she says every house there in the old Arabic district or Moorish district has a fountain and a garden. So, I was just like, wow, in the West, we have apartment buildings, people struggle to have gardens or have anything. Water feature is something of a luxury. But if you look at the homes, some of them are really tiny. But the fact that they've always put that as something that has to be part of was part of their DNA. We have to have this. Says a lot about the mindfulness that they would have had and the quality of life they would have led.
Yeah, definitely. I can't help but think about the symbolic of water in our faith, but water is also compared to revelation. It gives
Yes.
life.
Yes.
This is what gives life to Earth when it seems like nothing could come out of it. But then rain comes, and then uh, like life sprouts again from the earth
Yes.
because of water.
Yes. And I think it's the last few lines as well in Surah Mulk at the end, right, of that chapter, uh, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions water again. So I think, what you're saying, it's just, subhanallah, it's quite overwhelming when we think about, you know, what percentage of the earth is water, what percentage of our body is water, how important water is in life and the creation of life and our sustainability. And the last verse was, you know, uh, who else could bring water if the water was to go away, you know, completely? And so I love that you referenced that, Sophia. You're absolutely right, and we forget that, we take that for granted, Something I also learned as part of my sort of health recovery journey was, animals, when they're ill, they hibernate, they don't eat. We as humans think that when we're ill, we need to eat. You need to eat. You need to eat to get better. But actually, if you just have water in its purest form, it's also part of healing. And if you think of how people live today with always drinking juice or sodas, most people don't hydrate like they should. And yet, hydration is so important, for when you have a headache. I've read, drink a glass of water. You might be surprised. You might just need some hydration. Also, in terms of uh, not just hydration, with the headache, but also as a part of detoxification. When you're going for a massage, you always find the masseuse tell you, please drink lots of water. And I asked her once why. She says, because the body's detoxing after the massage. We've activated all these lymph nodes now, and the toxins want to come out. So you've got to flush that out by drinking lots of water. And so we forget, and then again, obviously, because the Quran is the words of Allah, He's the all-knower, He knows everything. He created us and this world. We might not always have to understand what He's asking us to do. We do now, because of science and our knowledge is improving. But as Muslims, we also have to know that He's never going to tell us something that's not going to be beneficial for us. And I think that's, a lesson that I really took away when I was in Granada, because, being South African, and then it's not a Muslim country, although we have a fantastic Muslim community. And coming to Europe, living in the UK and going to Dubai as well, and then now here, I've not been in what I could say was a truly Islamic experience like I had at Alhambra, where it's not just the beauty and the design, because that's what's happening a lot in Dubai, right? It's beautiful buildings, spectacular. But what I experienced here was a history of faith infused and actually leading the design. Faith leads the design, but the infusion just made me appreciate my faith even more. And I wanted to share that with our viewers. We always say Islam is peace and tolerance and love. And if you think, because of what you're seeing and the narrative you're hearing, you think, nah, go and visit this place and learn about the history and experience it for yourself, to see the beauty of this wonderful religion that is driven solely by peace.
Definitely. Yeah, but again, I really want to go there now. And the other thing I was thinking, what I was thinking about as you were speaking about water. I mean, we could speak about just the symbolic, everything that has to do with water and how important it is in our life. Like, we can go
Yeah.
on for a few days without eating, but without water,
Yeah.
it's very difficult. Like, the time we can live without water is much shorter.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this aspect of the physiological need for water, and that we are made of water, and so on and so forth. But also the spiritual aspect, that we need water for our purification, to make
Yes.
to be able to pray.
Yes.
And it's just water,
Yes.
pure water. And having this, like you said, in every house there is this fountain, and it's because we pray 5 times a day. And we need to be uh, ritually pure before we engage in this act of worship. And having water is something which is essential. And we also find these fountains in mosques, like open in the how is it called again? When you enter, typically Morocco, and I think there must be still this kind of mosques also in the south of Spain. You enter there and you have these fountains of water, because people would
Yes.
get in and purify themselves, make the ablutions, and then enter the space for prayer and go into prayer. So cleanliness, being clean, being
Yes.
keeping ourselves and so on, it's also a very important part of the faith. We know that
Yes.
angels do not stand any bad smells, and
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
if we want to be like surrounded by angels, we need
Yeah.
to keep clean and smelling good. And
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, on the concept of water, it ties into all the pillars in Islam. So one of the pillars we have is to give charity. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the best form of charity is to give someone water. So
yeah,
again, tying into water. And in my classes that I'm studying with Jannah Institute with Dr. Sheikh Haifa Yunus, she's also reminding ourselves to be more sustainable when we're doing the ablution, because often people open their taps and they let the water run. And she's saying, no, do your first part and close the tap. Open the tap and do the second part of your ablution. Close the tap. So we don't need to have the water running and wasting of water, and also during Ramadan, she was reminding all of the sisters who were prepping for mosque functions, don't use plastic. We're wasting. Carry your water bottle if you're distributing water in the mosque. If you're doing a food prep, use sustainable plates, paper plates that is biodegradable than the plastic. So we are meant to be a sustainable faith, but sometimes we forget in the way we practice, because we're
mm,
always looking at, and I think we spoke about that. What technology has done is convenience, but convenience is not always sustainable.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's where we need to sort of take a step back and go, well, what can I do and how can I improve, in being more sustainable? Because it's not just good for the environment, it's actually good for everything, for me as an individual and the environment, because the environment is not thriving, I'm not going to thrive, right? And we see that
yeah,
already with food shortages, with plants becoming extinct, animals, etc. So there's so much to unpack just on
yeah,
the topic of
definitely.
water. I think that
Yeah,
in
yeah,
itself can be its own live stream, live
yeah,
stream
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
here.
Because the earth is has been created so at our disposal, so that we can take from it, but we have
Mhm.
to take care of it as well. It's our responsibility to take care of the earth, nature, animals, water, that
Mhm.
so that water that used to be clean remains clean in nature.
Yes.
So yeah, it's unfortunately it hasn't been like that all the time, but it's really interesting when we think about it, to see how our faith really is perfect. It encompasses every aspect of life, be it the environment, like having this concern for the environment being sustainable, to how to clean our own body. So
Yes.
it's from the macro to the micro, basically. Um, yeah,
I also took advice from my teacher. She also taught us that, I'm not sure if it's a hadith, but she said, fire is hot and water douses the fire. So when you're angry, and you're really in a heated discussion, stop, count to 10, and go away and perform ablution. And for our non-Muslim audience, ablution is the special wash we do to cleanse ourselves spiritually and physically. And actually, I tried it when I was angry once, and it absolutely did work. So water has so much, besides the coolness, physical coolness, there's also that spiritual angle as well, Sophia, about the sound, right? It's all the senses, right? Because we also, when we rinse our mouth and our nose, we're impacting our smell, our taste, and we're hearing the sound of the water, we're feeling the water, and then the water's also doing something else. It's cooling us down. So it's unbelievable. There's so many articles now about mindfulness and nature and people, taking breaks, especially during COVID. And when I thought about that, I thought about the taking breaks, because people say it's really difficult. And then I thought about us, who we have to pray 5 times a day. And while others look in and see it as a chore, it's actually giving you a break. It's actually giving you a break away from the hustle and bustle. This is your personal time with you and God, your one-on-one, and you need to switch off. And yet most of us find it challenging to even switch off. But how beautiful is this, that nobody can say to you, well, you can't go and have you can't pray. Excuse me. For us, like, your parents can't say, your sister or brother no, I need you now and you need to do this. Actually, no, I need to pray. So your breaks are there for you. It's so beautiful, giving you the time. And then the physical aspect of the prayer as well, the movement. Most people do yoga and Pilates. And when I talk about, what we do in our prayer and our posture, they go, wow, that's amazing. Also your head down to the ground. There's an article about that, from the yogis, about the energy and what happens to the brain. And I was just, that wasn't explained to us, but God in his wisdom doesn't have to explain everything, right? We have to
Yeah.
trust him. And I think that's so beautiful. That's what I'm finding as I'm getting older. It's really resonating with me, and I'm seeing so much beauty in everything. Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah. So I think we'll wrap it up. We don't have anyone asking any questions on the live, but if you have any comments, if you have any questions, any feedback, let us know. We'll be happy to answer you. I'll also put Sophia's credentials in there, because I think, sometimes we get so caught up and we're so busy in every, thing we do in our day-to-day lives, that sometimes we forget, or we don't know how. I wouldn't say we forget. We struggle with having the balance. And that's where Sophia comes in really handy in coaching you in having that balance as a Muslim woman, whether you're a businesswoman or whether you're at home, a stay-at-home mom. You want that balance. She's definitely the right person to help you. And also, she ties that in with our faith, which I think is something I missed for a long time when I spoke to coaches or when I had mentors, Sophia. There wasn't that link. Whereas now it's so wonderful to talk to someone like yourself who then aligns me. And the beauty of our faith is that when you realize that you're not in control, there are certain things that you can do. Absolutely. You don't sit back and wait. Obviously, God has given us the ability to do things and choices we can make. But ultimately, the big tests, when you remind people that, this is not in your control, it makes it a lot more easier to deal with that challenge and to sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Ride the
Let
storm,
go.
so to speak, because, in the Quran, it says Allah is with those who are patient, right?
Yeah.
So we forget that, because in today's world, in the society we live in, everything is on all the time, 24/7. We're online, lots coming in, everything needs to be done now. If the internet lags, it's an issue. It's the end of the world if my Wi-Fi is not connected or I can't access my mobile device. But to have sabr and patience is a characteristic that will help you deal with every situation, every calamity. Take a step back, breathe, patience. Go and take ablution, think about it. And I know myself personally, I'm quite sort of hot-headed. If I do this, I do react differently than I would have reacted if I didn't stop, right? If I just reacted. And that's also what I love about talking to you and being on your podcast is if you want to be a woman of ihsan, a woman of excellence, it is about building your relationship with Allah. And that's not going to happen if you're not going to educate yourself. So learning is so key for everybody watching. Watching lectures is great, but go and study, go and learn, understand your faith so that you can have conversations with people when they ask you about your faith instead of shying away and allowing this horrible narrative to overshadow everything we do. We should be proud. We should, chest out, head, chin up, and be proud of who we are. And that only comes from your understanding and your belief system in knowing that we stand for truth. We're not unfair. We're peaceful people. We have conditions for war, and that is not our first choice. And so what's happening right now, it's important. That's why Sofia and I are doing this, to share with you the beauty of Islam, the attributes and qualities of a Muslim, and that we hope that this will inspire you to learn more and to understand more about this beautiful faith and the beautiful history.
Thank you so much, Haseeba. At least I have been, I've been traveling a little bit out of my room. I was for a few moments, I was in Granada, in these beautiful gardens, in these beautiful palaces. Yeah, we'll have to plan a trip to go there, inshallah.
Absolutely. And I was actually thinking even a retreat, it's such a beautiful place to have a retreat. It's just, you come back and even just talking about it, my mood changed. I was having technical difficulties now earlier with the video and the StreamYard. I couldn't see my screen, everything froze. But then just talking about it again, I was like, calm. And as I'm talking to you, I'm smelling the roses, the scents. This is something
amazing.
that I've not experienced before. I've been to beautiful places, but when I come back, my memory doesn't trigger my smell. I can't say to you, I've been to that place. I can actually smell. But this experience really, when I came home, every time I speak about it, I can smell, that memories come back. And I think it's also because I'm on a different spiritual journey as well, Sofia, than what I was before. So this is also my first trip traveling on a very different level of spirituality. So that's something I'm also grateful for. Very, very grateful. Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah for that, granting me that opportunity to have that sort of thinking and that focus. But Jazakallah khair, my sister. Thank you so much for joining and for doing this live stream with me. And for my audience, Sofia she's my cheerleader. She's my go-to person. I feel very blessed to have met her and to collaborate with her, inshallah. And I make dua that this collaboration will continue and grow strong, and that we will also be reunited in Jannah, inshallah. Ameen.
The best of places to be reunited in.
Exactly. And then I can say, Sofia, remember when I was doing that live about Granada? I mean, look at this. So wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much for everything, for your kind words. I feel the same about you. Jazakallah khairan.
Okay, thank you to everyone for watching. We'll put all of our contact details in the comments, and also the lovely tour guide Wafa, who's in Granada. I would highly recommend her. She did a one-to-one tour with me. She's extremely knowledgeable and she's a wonderful human being. So take care, everyone. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.